In the short story The Swimmer by John Cheever, it follows the day of Nettie, a wealthy older man who decides to return home by swimming through all the pools in his county rather than just walking home. As he swims through each pool, he encounters some of his neighbors. They offer him a drink, a quick chat, and then he goes on his way. The swimming pools he passes through are metaphors for different time periods throughout his life. At the beginning, he feels strong, young, full of energy. But with each pool that he passes through, slowly his energy is drained, and he feels worse, tired, and older. The warm, sunny day slowly fades into a cold, dark night. As the leaves begin to change colors and fall off the trees, he realizes that time is passing by quicker than it really is. Soon he's too weak to climb out of the pool, having to use the ladder to get himself out. He then realizes his social status has changed as well. He was no longer being greeted by his neighbors. Instead, they looked at him in a form of disgust. When he finally reaches his own home, he realizes that the life he once had is no more. When he finally gets home, he realizes that there's no one there. The lights are off, the door is locked, and his wife is no longer there. He took his once promising life for granted, assuming that it would always be there, no matter what he did and how he acted. But unfortunately, time finally caught up to him. Using the Marxist literary theory, you can analyze the time, place, and political system that was in place when the author wrote this story. By reading how the author describes the scenery and characters, with all their wealth, it's safe to assume that the story is taking place in a westernized country like Canada or the USA. With their bigger homes, pools, and the type of relationship they have with their friends, family, and fellow neighbors, with the way the character acts and speaks, it's safe to say they're a bit older, probably around 50 to 60. Since they also have time to sit around in the middle of the week, have drinks, and converse, instead of going to their job, I'd also assume they're retired. With there being tons of lakes and pools around, it's most likely somewhere a bit warmer, but they also have a very mild winter, since when the weather changed, as John progressed through the pool, you can see there was a bit of snow. With the time and place that the story is taking place in, they are most likely living a democratic style of politics, giving him general freedom and allowing him to express how he feels, which in this case, all this freedom wasn't the best for Nettie. The protagonist in this story ages very quickly and evolves in a very short period of time, similar to how Robert ages mentally very quickly in the wars. Although the storyline is a bit different, the character development is very similar. In the wars, Robert is forced by his surroundings to age and mature, but in The Swimmer, Nettie ages through each pool that he crosses. They both go through many years' worth of development, all in very little time. With each event in the wars, Robert ages, similarly to how every time Nettie goes through a pool, he also ages. After Robert's first encounter with death, mentally he aged. After his encounter at the brothel, mentally he got more mature. When he had to lead his troops through Belgium, he had to quickly mature and be a leader. Each major event in Robert's story is like a pool, and every time he passes through, mentally he ages. Even though it's not clarified in the short story, you would think that each pool that Nettie crosses through represents a significant part of his life, and eventually, when he's out of pools to cross, it means his life is over. leaving him in his big empty house in the suburbs all alone. Like the poem Still I Rise by Maya Angelou, it touches on the act of repetition in a piece of literature. Although not as clear and blatant as in Still I Rise, where she repeats it to instill a message in you, this situation is again to show how each pool represents him progressing to another part of his life. The author repeats this to allow the reader to see what a considerable life he had, repeating that he's gone through 1 pool, 2 pools, 3 pools, and so on. Although it doesn't bring the same message that Still I Rise has, they use the same literary device, just with different motives on the reader. The emptiness of suburbia is another theme that can be interpreted throughout the story. As he passes through each pool in his suburban neighborhood, he sees his neighbors, and each time he interacts with them, it's the same bland conversation. He doesn't know any real facts about these people, but considers them to be his closest friends. And each time he spends time with these people, they're always drinking, as if they're trying to escape something. That really is the emptiness that they all feel being trapped in a suburban neighborhood, where they're all essentially the same. Finally, the swimmer uses complex imagery to allow the reader to imagine what the layout of the scenes looks and feels like. The cold breeze as the time passes and the seasons change. The cool air as the winter comes. All examples of imagery and how the author creates an image in your brain to further connect you with these stories. We see examples of imagery in the course, like in The Wars, where the author often used imagery to describe the battlefield. They also used imagery in the poem I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing by Maya Angelou, often to describe the landscape where the bird is and how beautiful it is. Similar to this author, uses imagery to describe the pools and the scenery surrounding them.